You're tuned into the Spot Up Pod, the official podcast of the Spot Up Shot newsletter. I'm your host, Paul Garcia. Good morning. It's Wednesday, October 9th. And that means that it is Spurs preseason basketball day. So the Spurs do take on the Orlando Magic later on this evening. Some good news for the Spurs is that they're going to have two of their key players back on the lineup, and that is Victor Wembanyama and Chris Paul. The team put out their injury report on Tuesday afternoon, and they listed Devin Vassell, Zach Collins, Charles Bassey, David Duke Jr., and Nathan Mensah as out for this coming game Wednesday. Again, the good news there is that Wemby and Paul are going to be back, and so that means that the majority of the Spurs' core rotation players should be available, aside from probably Vassell and Collins. I don't see Bassey, Duke Jr., or Mensah being in their core lineup whenever they're fully healthy. And so again, we're going to get to see a picture of maybe who Pop's looking at for the starting lineup, and so that's something to watch. And also, who are those first players that get those second unit minutes with most of the team back, aside from maybe Collins, who he's still injured, but he's probably going to end up being the backup center. So again, just predicting what the Spurs lineup might look like. I'm saying right now, Chris Paul as the point guard, Julian Champagnie as a two guard, Harrison Barnes as a three, Jeremy Sohan as a four, and then Victor Wembanyama there as a center. And then off the bench, probably Trey Jones, Stephon Castle, Keldon Johnson, and Sandro Mamukelashvili. And then it'll be interesting to see if what Pop does with that fifth role on the bench unit, if he goes with maybe Malachi Branham for more offense, or if he goes with Blake Wesley for more defense. So again, those would be some interesting questions to watch. I'm also eager to see if Champagnie played well enough on Monday when he scored 22 points and made 6 threes. If he played well enough where Coach Pop wants to start him in place of Vassell until Vassell does get healthy. Regarding this game, it is going to tip off at 7 p.m. Central Time in San Antonio. If you're watching it on TV, it's on CWSA for those of you that live near San Antonio or in San Antonio, and then on League Pass for those of you out of that market. And I did check the Orlando Magic PR page before I started recording this episode, and they hadn't listed any kind of injuries yet for their core players. So again, as of right now, I would say that the Magic are going to have most of their core players available. But again, we'll see. I do want to note that even though you're listening to this on a Wednesday morning, I am recording this at in the evening on a Tuesday evening. So now moving on to our next topic here, I want to talk about Stephon Castle. So the Spurs, after their game against the OKC on Monday, they ended up having practice on Tuesday, and Steph Castle addressed the media afterward. And so I want to go through 3 big takeaways that he talked about here in this media scrum with the reporters. So first of all, if you watched the game on Monday, you saw that offensively he had a tough night in the turnover department. He ended up with 6 turnovers. Steph Castle did against the Thunder defense. And so Coach Pop talked about how, in a way, that was a good experience for him after the game, because it got to teach him, just how much, he has to be ready for like the physicality, the speed, the size of NBA defenders. And so that's something that Steph actually commented on Tuesday in his press conference. So here's what he said. I really want to pull his quote here. He said this: "I feel like I processed it pretty good," said Castle, reading the Thunder defense. "Just being able to be on the ball a little more, be off the ball, knowing when and when not to cut, noticing how they're loading up, how they're in gaps. It's really the little things like that where I could find spaces to attack." And so, basically Castle just went on to say that basically, it was good preparation for him to see, and something that he needs to get are reps. He basically needs to get those experiences against NBA level defenses and, individual defenders out there to get adjusted to the physicality, he said, and the speed of the game. And so one good note for Castle is that, if you go back and watch his 6 turnovers, they're all very common turnovers for a rookie that you would expect a rookie to make. And they're very much correctable turnovers, turnovers in the sense of being able to watch film and noticing your mistakes, but then also just getting those reps, getting more experience playing against NBA defenses, against different schemes and things like that. And then also just having that anticipation, that feel of knowing the speed of the NBA game. And so he's going to be able to work on that, because as I went back and watched the 6 turnovers, some of them are very, like I said, very correctable. So 2 of them came off of possessions where he drove it to 2 or 3 defenders. Again, that's more about him learning how to read the defense and the half court offense. There was 2 where he was kind of just throwing a pass to a teammate, and the defender saw that and right away, kind of intercepted and took off the other way. So again, that's more so knowing, the anticipation of those defenders. And then another one was a questionable one where he got called for a charge, but when he was throwing an alley-oop to Sidi Sissoko. But again, that's more so on the ref. Some refs might call that as a charge, others may not. So again, I think that, again, if that's a good sign for him, the fact that those are all correctable turnovers for Castle. Then Castle was asked about, the perimeter defense that he and Blake Wesley play together. So Coach Pop kind of highlighted their defense out there, the 2 guards on Monday, how they kind of set the tone defensively. And so here's what Castle mentioned here. He said, That was something me and Blake kind of set the tone with in open gym. Kind of try and be the best on-ball defenders for our team. So coming into a timeout, coach said he wanted us to kind of up it a little bit defensively, specifically us too, and I feel like we executed it on it. So again, that's Castle saying that that's a strategy Coach Pop can now go to. If he needs more pressure on the opponent's offense, he can go to those two guards to really put pressure. On the players bringing up the ball, getting them into their half court sets. Those two players, Wesley and Castle, are ready to do that. And that's good to see that both that Castle said himself that he and Blake want to be the two best on ball defenders on the team. So again, that should help out their defense, and that also bodes well for Blake Wesley. That he might actually be able to crack the rotation even when the team is fully healthy. That if they need to turn up, kind of just put more defensive pressure out there, they can go to Wesley and Castle together, and that way he can get some increased minutes in different games whenever they do need those kind of possessions out there on defense. And then finally, just one quick comment Castle made was he was asked about that throw down dunk. So if you saw that possession where he kind of he dunked it over a Thunder defender when they left him wide open.
Well, it's all going for him.
Feeling confident. Castle. Oh, Castle!
He was the king in his castle that time.
I just kind of want to go through his comments. He said this: "It was really when I looked, the man that was guarding me ran across to the other side. And so when I looked and I didn't see nobody in front of me, that's kind of when I knew," said Castle, going up for that slam. So again, that was just Castle commenting on how he found himself wide open. And then also after practice on Tuesday, Riley Minix, another Spurs rookie who's on a training camp contract, he also spoke with the media. And so I'm just going to go through some of his big takeaways from his interview. And again, if you want to read the full quotes, go to thespotupshot.com. That's where I have the full interview, written up. So one thing he talked about is how he's kind of like soaking in this experience of being with the Spurs now. He was asked, what's the difference between summer league and now training camp and the preseason? He said it's the fact that you have, that with the Spurs right now, you have, veterans out there who have multiple years of experience, such as Chris Paul, such as Harrison Barnes, and Minix even called Wemby a veteran in the fact that I know Victor's only in his second year, but Victor's been playing professional ball for a few years now, Minix mentioned. And so one of the players he really highlighted here was Chris Paul. He talked about how Chris has really helped him kind of see spacing elements out there on the floor, just knowing what position to be in, where to be off the ball, when he's out there with Paul. So again, Minix said he's really learned a lot from Chris Paul. And then just on his three-point shot, obviously he says that he's known for his three-point shooting ability. And so one thing he's had to do is adapt to the quicker closeouts by NBA defenders. So that's one thing he's worked on is his shot release in terms of the timing of it. He's made it a quicker pull on his threes. And he says that his teammates have been very encouraging of him. They're saying that when he gets in the game and if the shot is there, he needs to shoot it. So obviously he did that in that first preseason game where he went 2 of 3 from distance for 8 points. And then finally, he was asked about, his roster status basically, and, just overall, what are his preparations? And so he's very much aware that he is on a training camp contract, which means that, before the regular season starts on October 24th, the Spurs are going to have to make some roster cuts. And so he knows that, a standard roster spot is not guaranteed, but he just talked about how, he wants to have a multiple year NBA career, whether that's, he's hoping obviously that's with the Spurs, but if not, he's going to keep doing what he can to try to, land on an NBA roster. He was also asked about, the Spurs typically, bring rookies to Austin to play with the Austin Spurs, and he said he would definitely welcome that idea as well. Like if there was only an Austin spot for him, maybe like that Spurs open 2-way contract. So again, we'll see what happens tonight in this Spurs versus Magic game. Thank you for taking the time to listen to this episode of the Spot Up Pod. If you like what you heard, please subscribe and leave us a rating on your favorite podcast apps and our YouTube channel. The Spot Up Pod is recorded and produced by Paul Garcia. The music for this episode was written by Vincent Garcia and Paul Garcia. Thank you for listening and have a great day.